Hey there. Well, it's the first Sunday of Advent, the day that we light the prophet's candle, also called the hope candle. Now, I don't want to make the assumption that you know what Advent is. I've been born again since I was 5 and went to a lot of different kinds of churches in that time. And not all of them celebrated Advent. Some of them did, but they weren't usually very serious about it. I grew up in a lot of evangelical churches, charismatic church thrown in there. It wasn't until I grew up that I experienced high church. And a lot of the Anglicans will take Advent very seriously. The Episcopalians, the Lutherans, especially the Roman Catholics, they all celebrate Advent and take it seriously. And I think that even non-denominational and Baptist and evangelical and other Bible churches could really benefit from celebrating Advent as well and paying a little more attention to the church calendar. And I'll tell you why. I'm Mary Ann, and this is A Grain of Salt. Well, today I'm trying my hand at a no-fail rye sandwich bread. Every week, my friend Jen and I do Bible study together, and she's been doing a lot of stuff with sourdough recently. And so every time we go to her house, there's always something new and delicious to try in the bread department. And even though I've tried to give up bread a lot of times, it never sticks. I just like it too much. So I want to try making more of my own bread at home and eventually getting to sourdough. But before that, I need to learn how to make regular bread with yeast, because the only breads I know how to do are quick breads, like zucchini, banana, pumpkin, or what's the word I want? Or soda bread. I figure if I want to learn sourdough, I better learn how to use packaged yeast first, because I have enough farm animals and pets and houseplants that I need to keep alive before I add a pet that I'm planning to bake and eat that also needs to be kept alive, and I don't know how to use it. So part of the reason that I've chosen today to bake bread is because today is the Hope Candle, or the Prophet's Candle, Hope Sunday for Advent. In one sense, Advent is the beginning of the Anglican Church year, liturgical year. Oops. See, this is why I have to practice. It's a time of waiting and preparing for the advent or arrival of Jesus Christ. Even the word Advent comes from the Latin adventus, which just means arrival or to put in place or to arrive in place. While Christmas is the celebration of the birth of Jesus, Advent is the preparation for the celebration. But in recent years, or really decades, Western Christians have really gotten it wrong. We've allowed the consumerist culture to overtake our holiday because we start on the 1st of December or even the day after Halloween to get ready for Christmas. You can see already Christmas decorations in the stores as soon as Halloween decorations arrive. And that's because, the stores want us to spend money and to buy Christmas decorations and get in the Christmas spirit and think about all the gifts we have to buy and get our lists checked off. For Christians, Advent is a stage-setting time, not the celebrating time. Yes? I'm not making anything you would like. No, I'm telling you, nothing here is anything you would enjoy. Advent is kind of like Lent leading up to Easter. It's the time of preparing before we have Christmas dinner and sing carols and open presents. Adam Sandler wrote that song about Hanukkah and talking about how Jewish kids get 8 crazy nights of presents while the Christian kids only get 1 day of Christmas. But really, Christmas is 12 days long. It begins on December 25th and goes all the way until January 6th, 12 days later, which is Epiphany, the commemoration of the arrival of the wise men. when they brought their gifts to Jesus, who probably would have been about 2 years old at the time. That's why Herod had all of the children in Bethlehem 2 years and under, the male children, killed, because the star didn't appear in the sky until Jesus was born, and that's when those men started to follow it. So they followed it to Bethlehem, where he was still living at the time, but he was a toddler. He wasn't a newborn infant. They didn't arrive at the same time as the shepherds. The shepherds were the first to see Jesus besides his parents. Now for us, we know that Jesus has already come. He was born and he lived his life and he had 4 years of ministry, and then he was crucified and resurrected. And he is now ascended and seated at the right hand of the Father, awaiting the day that he receives his kingdom. So in that sense, Advent takes on a whole other element of anticipation, the fact that Jesus is coming again. Romans 8:22 and 23 says, "For we know that the whole of creation is groaning as with the pangs of childbirth together until now. And not only that, but we also, who have the first fruits of the Spirit, even we ourselves groan in anticipation within ourselves, eagerly waiting for our adoption and the redemption of our body." Paul speaks about how all of creation is waiting for the full redemption, not just Jesus' resurrection, which justifies, but Jesus' return, which glorifies. And creation is waiting just like we are. Similarly, in 1 Thessalonians 4:16-17, it says, and I'm going to read it because I don't have it memorized, "For the Lord himself will descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of an archangel, and with the trumpet of God. And the dead in Christ will rise first. Then we who are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air. And thus we shall always be with the Lord." And this is what we're currently waiting for, the gathering together of believers all over the world. Those of us who are alive still and those who have already gone ahead. Advent invites us to live in hope and look forward to that glorious day, the day that will be made sinless and live in a world made perfect. Ugh. Well, I'm going to spend a minute kneading this bread. I was reading on this recipe that because there's rye flour in here, I have to work it a little bit longer because rye doesn't really have any wheat gluten because it's not wheat. So there is bread flour in here, and that's where the gluten comes from. That'll give the loaf its stretch and its shape and its crumb. So I just have to work it long enough to activate that wheat gluten. And then it'll do like an hour rise before I shape it and put it in the bread pan, and then it'll be another like 30 minutes for the second rise before I bake it. So I've just greased this bowl that I washed, and then I'm going to measure this plastic wrap. It never tears off just right. And Blizzard, get down. Come on. I measured that plastic wrap to fit the bowl, mostly, except that it's all stuck to itself now. And then I greased that as well, so that if the bread rises enough to touch it, it won't stick to it. All right, while that bread does its first rise, let's put out the Advent candles. While I do have bins for all of my Christmas decorations, I have one separate one for Advent because Advent comes first. And so I want these handy to pull out before I have to haul out all of my Christmas bins. This is my daughter's Advent calendar. It lights up, and it's reusable because it has little drawers in it. I invested in this a few years back, and I started the tradition of I go to the bank and I get dollar coins, and it's just $25, but I put one in each drawer with like a Hershey Kiss or a peppermint or a small piece of candy for each day leading up to Christmas, starting on December 1st, and that's a lot of fun. And then I also have books in here that I like to have out before Christmas. It's a Louisa May Alcott Christmas selected holiday stories and poems, and then Letters from Father Christmas by J.R.R. Tolkien. And then this is kind of old, but it's a kid's Advent book. And then I have unopened boxes of Advent candles that are new, because if I leave it to myself to order them new every year, I will end up using previous year's candles, which is fine because you hate to throw them away when they're only burned just a little bit. So probably what I'll do is put new candles in for decorative purposes and then just keep burning these, swap them out as I go because, waste not, want not. And then I have a few CDs also. So I don't really do much Christmas music before Christmas if I can help it. I get enough of it at the store. And I like Christmas music, so I want to save it for Christmas, the 25th to January 6th. But I can never have enough of Charlie Brown Christmas or Burl Ives. So this is my Advent candle holder that I use every year. This is a fake wreath. And I'm not inclined to replace it. I like to make green things, and I did a video about this for Friday, last Friday. But for the most part, this comes off if I wanted to replace it with something else that's not so plastic. But I don't really have any problem with it, and I kind of like it. So I just leave it there. And then this is the same, actually, I'll show you. This is the same placemat that I had under my Thanksgiving decorations, and I just flipped it over because it's got a different color on the other side. And then I have a big stock of longer taper candles because, when you put them in, here, I'll actually open a new box. In my particular holder, when you stick these candles in, this one in the middle is lower, so I have to buy taller tapers for the Christ candle in the middle so that it stands taller than the ones on the outside, or at least of equal height instead of lower, because it's not of lesser importance. It's the Christ candle for Christmas Day. So all of these candles then stand for something, and you light one each Sunday leading up to Christmas. The first candle for today is the hope candle, or the prophet's candle. Then your second candle for next week is the peace candle, or Bethlehem candle. The third pink candle is the joy candle, or shepherd's candle. And then this fourth candle is the love candle, or the angel's candle, leading up to the Christ candle in the middle, which is for Christmas Day. Let's slide that aside real quick. And I want to read to you from Isaiah 9. starting in verse 6. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and peace there shall be no end, upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom, to order it and to establish it with judgment and with justice from henceforth, even forever. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will perform this. So that's the prophet Isaiah predicting the birth of Jesus Christ. And that's what the prophet's candle is about. It's about the hope that the prophets gave to Israel that one day they would have a Messiah. And the hope that we have now that we've been brought into that salvific plan. And the hope that we have for the future for our glorified eternity. So I hope that that's something that you can think about and celebrate today on Hope Sunday when you light your prophet's candle. I'm going to check on my bread now. This bread has been rising for about an hour, and it does have some extra size now, so that's good. A lot of times when I try to bake yeast bread, it's just a brick. So now I'm going to kind of punch it down. So now I'm going to put it in my loaf pan. So that it's actually shaped like a loaf. And I'll just take this same piece of plastic that's been sprayed with oil and cover that again. And then I've got my oven preheating to 375, and I started it now because I have a gas oven and it takes 14 years to get up to temperature. So I could do it. I thought about doing it in my toaster oven because it's a convection oven, but since I don't know how high this is going to rise, I didn't want it to touch the top coils. So I'm doing it in my big oven. But this will sit for another 35 to 40 minutes to get a second rise on it, and then I'll put it in the oven for 30 minutes. All right, this bread has risen, which is a miracle. So I am going to put it in the oven now at 375 for 30 minutes, and we'll see what happens. Well, my timer has gone off, and that means that my bread is ready. So I'm going to take it out of the oven and see how I did. Hi, Peach. Ooh. I have no idea what this is supposed to look like. Oh, hi, Peachy. This is Peaches. There you go. I think it looks okay. It's got a bit of a crust on it. And I know that from watching the Great British Baking Show that if I thump on the underside of it, it should sound hollow probably. I know I just took this out of the oven, so I should probably let it sit and cool off for a few minutes, but I want to see it and I want to show it to you so we know if this recipe is any good. Because if it's any good, I'll give it to you. Oops, slicing into it now. Okay. Whoops. Come on. Oh, it's sticking on one side. Rats. Well, that's about what happens when I try bread, honestly. At least it's not burnt. Cripes. There. If I turn it like that, it looks great. The inside doesn't really look too bad. I just took it out too soon and was a little rough with it, but it's bread. Tastes okay. I don't really taste the rye. I mean, it only had, what was it? 1.5 cups of rye flour to 3.5 cups of bread flour. So it's not the most rye of the rye breads, but it turned out okay. So I'll give you the recipe because if you know what you're doing with bread, you'll probably have better luck than I did. Hmm. Yeah, that's really nice, actually. Cool. Well, I'll try it again probably later this week and see if I can make it turn out even better because, that's how you learn to do things. I just want to leave you with a thought about this prophet's candle. John 1, verse 14. And the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. In that verse, the word word is with a capital W because it means Jesus. The Word became flesh. So the prophets spoke of the Messiah that would come, and he came, and that's what we celebrate at Christmas. But at Advent, we're preparing our hearts for not just that celebration. Are you serious? I'm trying to make a video. I think believers of every denomination could benefit from observing Advent. Even if you don't go to a church that does, you and your family could do it. I think it's really helpful in preparing your heart for Christmas and not getting too caught up in the secular trappings of the winter season. But don't just take my word for it. Crack open your Bible and stay salted. I'll see you next time. Bye.